Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Samantha Barrass toku ingoa, ko taku mahi ki te mana tatai hoko hoko, ko te mana whakahaere. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Hi everyone, it's always a pleasure to be here at the FSC annual conference and to have the chance to reconnect, and I'm looking forward to the dinner on Thursday evening. It's a great theme for the conference. As I've been preparing my remarks today, I've been thinking about the future, about what's around the corner for the financial services sector, because it's important that the FMA is forward-looking and nimble so that we can anticipate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for financial markets. I've got a little book here, KiwiSaver Annual Report for 2025. There's probably no other financial product that is so closely associated to the future financial well-being of New Zealanders as KiwiSaver. So today, I'm delighted to be releasing our annual report. It's the 18th year, so KiwiSaver's come of age. And like all 18th birthdays, there's much to celebrate, but also a bit to think on for the future. So total funds under management grew by 10% to $123 billion, driven by year-on-year increase of just over $12 billion in contributions and $6.4 billion in investment returns. Just under half of members are now invested in growth funds, with diversified funds continuing to comprise the vast majority of KiwiSaver assets. And over 65s appear to be managing their nest egg carefully rather than withdrawing it all at once. So what's clear, and this is really good news, is that KiwiSaver remains resilient in the middle of economic volatility and uncertainty, but there is room for improvement. The number of contributing members continues to rise. It's actually very high, with 30% of working members, but members who have working age aren't contributing, and that's up from about 20% in 2010. Even among the active choice members, there are 1.2 million who aren't currently contributing. Now, I don't have to tell you about the long-term opportunity cost of foregoing retirement contributions. If this trend continues, we risk a stark inequality between the contributing and non-contributing members of our national retirement scheme. Now, clearly, and this is one of the things that KiwiSaver has been built for, because it's a long-term savings scheme, is that this may well reflect the economic headwinds that are currently impacting New Zealanders, and we've seen this through the rise in hardship withdrawals, which is noticeable. There is no simple fix. All of us, policymakers, politicians, regulators, KiwiSaver providers and financial advisors, we all have a role here. And that's why we're launching the report here this year. All of us in the room have some sort of stake in the future of KiwiSaver. For default KiwiSaver providers, there are obligations to engage with default members throughout their retirement savings journeys, including during times of volatility and near the end of a member's savings suspension. For us, we're looking for firms to use all the options available to engage with their members about their contribution options, the planning tools that are available to ensure that KiwiSaver delivers on its core purpose. In keeping with the future theme, another issue that's front of mind for me is the accelerating pervasiveness of technology in financial services. We continue to see even greater capability. It's growing from generative AI with the opportunities to lift productivity and effectiveness. For me, my aha moment came while I was observing my daughter Emily using AI in her work when she was back in New Zealand at the end of last year. So she had back-to-back meetings. There was no time for note-taking, but there wasn't any problem because her AI tool was doing it for her, and the number of meetings that she could take each day was doubled. And as she works on commission, she was, of course, very happy with that. I've since been using generative AI and large language models in my own work and as well as at home, and I can see that it's going to be truly transformative. It can also be quite clunky, and I'll come on to what we need to take from that. Emily and I both have next year significant birthdays. So we're doing a joint birthday party. I won't tell you what my significant birthday is, but I'm a bit closer to the spandex retirement person that David Seymour was just talking about than my daughter is. So I decided to try and use AI to put the invitation together, and I eventually, after about 2 hours, ended up with a great invitation. But I had to watch it really carefully because it kept glitching out on me. I don't know whether any of you have tried to do this with AI. At one point, although it kept telling me that it was about to produce a great invitation, it missed out the location. Then it missed out the date. And at one point, when I thought I had it, I was about to send it out and I realized that it was inviting people to a barty, not a party. There was one other iteration that used F rather than B, but I'm in a polite audience. So what this tells us is it's fantastic, and certainly I would never have been able to produce in the end such a glitzy invitation, but it does mean that we need to be aware of the need for human intervention. And we've been enjoying a lot of the conversations that we've been having with firms around our expectations about AI. And our role here is to balance between enabling innovation that improves outcomes for customers, whilst making sure that we keep that, that kind of sense of checking, so that we can make sure that it maintains trust, transparency, and integrity in the system. Used well, we believe it can make a really positive impact on consumers, helping to lift financial literacy, lowering costs, and personalising services. But clearly, it needs to be deployed responsibly, keeping the consumer impact front and centre and enabled by risk management, appropriate governance, controls, and policies. So what's the ask here? We'd really like you to share what you're experimenting with. Share it with us. Tell us what's working, what isn't, because we're learning as well. Let us know what it's like trying to embed AI into legacy systems. I've just told you what it's like trying to embed AI into a party invitation, and help us to understand how we can best support responsible innovation. And clearly, the future isn't just about AI. Technology as a whole is changing the landscape of New Zealand's financial services, be it open banking, the digitisation of assets, or the increasing interest in crypto as an investment option. With all of these developments, it's important that we, as the regulator, are cognizant of and adapt to these changing times. And we're definitely up for the challenge. Our fintech sandbox pilot includes a number of firms who are dealing with stablecoins and tokenization, and this will help provide helpful insight into how these innovations might operate in New Zealand. And just last week, we released a discussion paper on tokenization. We've received an increasing number of inquiries on this topic, but we've noticed that these aren't translating into firms bringing tokenized products and services to market. And we're very excited to get this conversation started and look forward to hearing a wide range of views on the topic. I've got a second book here. At the FSC Outlook at the beginning of the year, I talked about a new publication that we would be producing on an annual basis, the Financial Conduct Report. And I'm pleased to have delivered this inaugural report to the market in June of this year. And I hope the report has provided clarity and focus for your engagements with us. Our engagement-led approach, our outcomes-focused approach, means that we aim to be the fence at the top of the cliff rather than the ambulance at the bottom. That way, we can work with you to get ahead of issues before they create harm for New Zealanders. Now, I want to turn to our stepped-up engagement with insurers in recent months. This reflects that for many insurers, this is the first time they have been regulated by the FMA, and the COFI regime is new. It also reflects that the insurance contracts law is on the horizon, and we're mindful of the need to balance quality over quantity of the engagements that we have as we work with insurers to navigate these changes. When it comes to our enforcement priorities, it will not come as a surprise to you that these are informed by our regulatory priorities. This means we will be keeping a close eye on issues such as conduct impacting consumers in vulnerable circumstances, misleading disclosures by wholesale issuers, insider conduct, and continuous disclosure. We will also be checking that consumers are treated fairly when things go wrong and know how to complain. This will be a particular focus in the deposit-taking and insurance sectors. Now, of course, this doesn't preclude us from considering misconduct outside of our regulatory priorities where it is serious enough to warrant us taking a closer look. At the end of the day, we are a risk-based, outcomes-focused regulator, meaning that we can and we will act if we identify actual or potential harm for New Zealanders or investors. One of the issues that has been regularly raised with us around our enforcement approach has been our response to issues that firms have self-disclosed and remediated. I acknowledge that many of these issues have been self-reported and remediation is or has taken place. But, and we've made these points before, the mere act of self-reporting and remediating does not mean we will always provide a light touch response. The nature of the underlying misconduct itself will always be the driving factor in assessing the appropriate response. The more serious the misconduct, consumers or to the market, the more likely it is that we will take enforcement action, irrespective of how it was reported. And I think there's an important point to note here. It isn't a choice to self-report. It's also, the COFI legislation is clear on this point. Material contraventions are required to be reported to the FMA. And look, we understand that it may be tempting to wait until problems have been fully unravelled, but we do consider that it's best to prioritise early engagement with us. I've got a rule of thumb that I've been giving to boards and firms throughout my regulatory career, which is when you're having a conversation about whether or not and when to report it to the FMA, the mere fact of having that conversation means you should be picking up the phone. Now, we've seen, thank you, we've seen significant positive change since the conduct and culture reviews, which are now 7 years old. And many of the recent issues have been able to be resolved through enforceable undertakings rather than the courts. And we have seen substantially improved engagement with firms on remediation issues. And I want to acknowledge that it's important that we do so. It is clear that engagement and proactivity in this area is improving. So in closing, as the FMA looks at what's ahead for the financial services sector, we know we cannot stand idle. And as I hope I've demonstrated through our look at KiwiSaver, the discussion paper on tokenisation, we are leaning into the issues that are ahead of us for the future. And with everything we do, whether it's our supervision and monitoring work or our enforcement action, we remain focused on fair outcomes for investors and consumers. So thank you very much for having me here today, and I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming panel discussion.